You're tuned in to HorrorSlop, where the stories are rotting, truth is twisted, and sleep, forget about it.
Yeah, welcome to the pit. It's gross, it's creepy, and honestly, it's kind of my vibe. Hope you like nightmares, because tonight's tale, it slithers.
Straight from the darkest corners of Reddit. Real stories, real fear, and just enough blood to stain your soul.
So at least grab your bed sheets, so grab a flashlight, and maybe a therapist.
This is HorrorSlop.
Alright, kicking things off with a personal favorite. It's messy, it's weird, and it sets the tone real fast. Story 1. Don't blink.
Let me start off by saying that I'm not particularly religious. If you asked me if I believed in God, I'd probably just shrug, grunt out a few words about being on the fence about it and continue with my day. Of course, that was before last night. My friends are the kinds of people who like wild nights. Crazy parties, snort a bit of coke, take a bit of E in the bathroom, maybe hook up with someone and leave a text on my phone at 10 past who the fuck knows telling me they don't need that ride I'm offering after all. Not to say I don't like a drink, I do, it's just, clubs aren't my style. Lying low in a pub somewhere, drink in hand, listening to the TV drone on to whatever channel some scruffy guy in the back barked out for. I guess that's my idea of fun. I tried to pretend I hadn't just staggered out of a club with my ears ringing. I slicked my hair back, slipped my phone into my hand and wandered over to the bar. I took a double shot of whiskey and drank it in one hit. Just because I wasn't at the club didn't mean I couldn't have a good time. Some of the girls were taking selfies, Snapchatting their friends who were still at the club. They were ordering shots, gearing themselves up for the next leg of their night. This was a night for the young and inebriated, and my mind was just dulled enough by the whiskey to enjoy the characters I could watch peaceably without interacting with. I really wasn't sure what to say. I settled on staring at her awkwardly, trying to answer her with the bemused expression on my face. "What happened?" I asked her. "I got in a couple of fights, no big deal," she said, shrugging. "Didn't start any, of course, no, I don't do that. But my father." "Your dad did this to you?" She smiled brightly. "In a way." "To tell you a story," the girl said, before glancing to the bar, "and for you to buy me a drink. The universe is a pain sometimes, and I'm afraid I think I might have lost my wallet." I guess I was okay with that. Her lips quirked. "Appletini." I snorted. "Yeah, I think I've heard that before." "I mean," I stuttered, now, don't take this the wrong way or anything, but, you look." She held my eyes for an incredibly long time before her face broke out into a grin. "Yeah, something like that." "Why wouldn't they?" the girl shot back. "People aren't that great and alcohol makes them worse." She shrugged. "Sometimes makes them better. Nicer, a little looser in the sack, but mostly just annoying and a little smelly." A lot of things made sense when the girl told me her name. For starters, that she was crazy. She had to be. She looked like she'd been attacked on 4 separate occasions in one night, and up until that moment, I hadn't known how that could be possible. Behind the melty makeup and dirty clothes, she was rather attractive, and her attitude hadn't come off as catty or rude. If she'd been going around telling people she was the devil, though, that gets a reaction out of people. I really would have to call the cops. "Are you?" I asked her. "Would I be here with you, drinking Appletinis if I were?" she asked, fluttering her eyelashes. "Would you look the way you do if you weren't?" I shot back. She grinned, toasting her new glass. "Touché." Unthinkingly, I clinked my cider against it. Then I frowned. She snorted into her drink. Not as often as I should. But it's been a rough day and a hell of a long lifetime. I'd like to have a chat if that's alright with you. I waved to the bartender for another whiskey. The girl's eyes glinted with humor. I wasn't necessarily trapped with her, but a part of me didn't want to leave without first hearing what she had to say. Besides, at the end of it all, I couldn't just leave a crazy girl to wander around London alone at night. So, I said, taking a swig of my drink. Eden. Adam and Eve? I continued. You're saying that's true. God created two humans and we all came from them. Lucy's face soured. No. My father could never bring himself to go that far. He tempted them with the idea of knowledge beyond their understanding and told them exactly what they could do to claim it as their own. But to be able to create a being that could go against his law. Oh, my father is a very controlling being. He was afraid to unleash that ability unto them. Lucy was very adamant in her delusions, that was clear to me. She spoke about her father with such distaste that I began to feel bad for her. Only someone who had been hurt very badly would have the gall to spite God himself. You're saying God wanted us to know this stuff? I asked her skeptically. I'm saying God was afraid of his own power and wanted very desperately to share what he knew with the creation he had made. Right and wrong, left and right, all that stuff. Lucy shrugged. Are you familiar with the story of Prometheus? If what you're saying is true, I said slowly, then God must be just like us. Angels don't have free will. No, Lucy said, they don't. And what about the devil? I don't know why I was suddenly so intrigued, but hearing religious ideals from someone who believed to have lived them herself was quite possibly one of the most interesting things that had ever happened to me. I may have only ever visited church to please my parents as a child, but suddenly I was reawakened to the idea. A part of me was aware of this and afraid of the outcome, but I was just drunk enough not to care at that moment. He wouldn't be able to control them, I said. Lucy nodded. Exactly. And after, he realized quicker still that he could no longer control me. Lucy nearly choked on her drink. She smiled around her glass. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Lucy sighed heavily. Adam and Eve and all the creations that followed were booted out of my father's perfect little utopia. Now they had his knowledge, my father was terrified of what he had done. And after what had happened to me, I could recognize his terror and understand the loneliness he had felt that had guided him into using me in the first place. Lucy's eyes were heavy-lidded, her sadness was almost palpable. I thought that he would want to spend even more time with me than before. After all, we were more alike than any of his other children. But he became distant, quiet. He played around with his little humans every once in a while, but mostly he condemned them. He blamed them for his weakness. She smiled weakly. He blamed me. I respected her wager. Whether or not I liked it, I felt compelled to let her tell me her whole story before I tried to judge or unravel it. I sat quietly, letting her come around as she played with the last of her drink. It became clear, Lucy said after a long moment's pause, that I no longer belonged where I was. I couldn't follow my father's plan because I could see that he no longer had one. My siblings refused to see reason, and so, eventually, I was met by many of them, headed by my father. He told me all that I feared, he told me that I no longer belonged where I was. I wasn't an angel anymore. I was no longer his light bringer. His Lucifer. I was a mutation of his will. And so he extracted me from grace. And I fell. A long silence stretched between us, only interrupted when the bartender poured us 2 new drinks. Lucy drank hers reflectively. I didn't touch mine. Why? I asked. Because your dad threw you out. I paused, trying to abide to her metaphor. That he put you in hell. You hide behind your alcohol and poor choices and pretend you have free will, Lucy said, waving her hand across the room. No one paid us any attention. It's true, my father gave you the will to make those decisions, but you squander it. The free will I felt to provide to all of you, the free will I was given by a twisted mistake, and you make a mockery of it. You follow senseless leaders without questioning them, you abide by laws made centuries ago that no longer make sense. You do these things because you have given up on the opportunity to follow the will of your own, not of others. She pursed her lips, tapping the bar as a bartender filled her drink again. Tell me, do you remember my mentioning hell at any point during my story, or was that just you? War, famine, pestilence, death, these things are all present and they have nothing to do with me or to do with any deity. They are all here because of you. Not because of your free will, but your inability to use it. Lucy smiled at me, a grin so cold and unnatural that I felt like I should run all over again. But I stayed where I was, frozen to my very core, because I wanted to hear what she had to say. Because I needed to. And here's the kicker, Lucy said. Because this is the part that actually enrages people enough to kick me. She winked. Hell isn't what happens after you die. Hell is right here, right now. Somewhere through the many scriptures, a few words got crossed over and people started thinking that hell was a punishment after you die. Fact is, hell is earth. My earth. God gave this place to me to do with it what I will and I refuse to do anything. What are you saying? I asked, because I was suddenly very desperate. Exactly what you think, Lucy said, toasting her glass. I didn't reciprocate, and she laughed. A light and airy sound. I had so many plans for your species, I wanted for us to rejoice in our free will together, to create a place that was free from the cruelty and power my father exuded over the angels, his firstborns. I wanted to make a real utopia. Unfortunately, you humans just don't want that. She shrugged. My father sent me down here thinking I had become one of you. All that I have learned is that he gave you much more of his image than he ever intended. Stop, I said. This isn't funny anymore. How do we change this? I begged. So I changed tactics. Why me? Which is why she said, when you first saw me, you were afraid for my safety. When I told you I was the devil, you wanted to lock me away, but still, you did so because you were afraid for me and not for yourself. You didn't wish to harm me, not even when I told you who I was and what I could be capable of for changing your sorry lives. You are a good person, but I am afraid that means nothing when you don't have the will to do anything with it. She smiled at me sympathetically. The devil, showing sympathy for the human that sat across from her at the bar. It was surreal and, for a few heavy moments, I truly thought I must be dead. There was no other way to explain what I was seeing, who I was speaking with. What I had just heard. What am I supposed to do? Lucy reached out to me. She placed a hand on my shoulder. Her hand was cold and warm at the same time, and I felt my blood boil where her fingers scraped my skin. The fact of the matter is simple. The world is a mess because we refuse to change anything. The devil herself walks among us and she desperately wants to make our lives better, but she won't. She won't, because we won't. We have to prove our will to her before she is willing to do anything herself. We have to be good to each other, to help us all to be free. You can tell as many people as you want, but take a good look at me. I have told 5 other humans this night the same things I have told you, and this was their reaction. They have hurt me, burned me, thrown their food and drink at me. Humans are afraid of their free will and they find it so much easier to hurt than to own up for their own inadequacies. You will only be free when you stop seeing yourself in the same way my father sees himself. And I beg you to do the same. If the devil approaches you one night, listen to what she has to say, and listen to what I have been able to tell you of our meeting. The devil is real and she doesn't want to torture us. No, we do that just fine on our own.
Still with us? Good. That last one was just the warm-up. Let's go deeper.
If you can see this, it is very important that you keep reading, by right Christ right. This is Colonel Jacob Wayne of the United States Air Force. If you're reading this right now, it is very important that you keep reading until the end. It should take 3 to 5 minutes, and it is extremely important that you read carefully and follow the instructions provided. Humor me if you must, but please don't look away until you've finished reading. Oh, and please try to stay calm. Any increase in your stress levels will draw their attention. It was tricky, but we found a way in to communicate directly with you. We had to embed this message into your daily routine so it didn't draw their attention. You're probably reading this on Reddit, Facebook, or some other social media site. Might even be in an email forward or a book, we don't know. We can't control how the message gets to you, we only know that you are receiving it. Subliminally, as your eyes are passing over these words, a code is being uploaded into your brain. Think of it as a computer virus, or in this case, an antivirus. Your brain is an organic computer, and they exploited that. They hacked right into your subconscious mind and overrode it with their simulation code. That's how they got in, and that's why everything appears normal. You might think that you're going about your daily life, but in reality you're strapped to a table with tubes sticking out of your body. They've probably figured out there's a glitch, but if our code is working, we've disabled their ability to do a hard reboot. Because of this, they will try other methods to disrupt the upload. It is very important that you ignore anything that might draw your attention from these words. If they pull you away before the upload completes, it will delete our code. Block them out. Ignore the movements you see in your peripheral vision. Those sounds you hear, the voices, they aren't family, friends, or co-workers in need of attention. They may even try to use your pets. They know your weaknesses. Evidently, if our code is working, the next thing you'll notice is an overwhelming urge to swallow. You don't realize it, but there's a feeding tube down your throat. You'll only know it's there because your tongue won't rest comfortably in your mouth. You might also become hyper-aware of the amount of saliva being produced. Don't overreact. If you have to swallow, just swallow. It's only weird if you make it weird. So, if you're still reading this, the code upload is about 90% complete. We've locked onto your location. You're doing great, but you're really going to need to focus now. Once the upload is complete, there will be instructions you will need to follow to exit the simulation. That is, if you've followed the instructions and haven't looked away. Almost there, just a few paragraphs more until the code upload is complete. Don't scan down, or up, just keep reading. I got you this far. Stay with me. Eyes open, eyes front, keep them locked on the screen. See you on the other side.
Alright, quick break before our next story. Let's check in with our resident spooky dude. Hey, you ever smile, or is your face just stuck that way?
I smiled once. The sky bled. A child vanished. Never again.
Okay, drama. Maybe next time just try a dad joke.
Knock knock. They never made it to the door.
Wow. Fine, stay moody. Anyways, back to the darkness. This next one's got teeth.
I was 17 and had just finished my junior year of high school. Around the same time, I finally received my graduated driver's license. In other words, no more curfew. To celebrate, a few buddies and I decided to take a road trip through the Adirondacks, driving north for maybe an hour or so and then turning around and heading back, just for the hell of it. We'd grown up in Albany, only about an hour from the gateway to the mountains, so it felt like the perfect mini-adventure. There were only 4 of us, me, a rising senior, Cody, another rising senior, Tom, a rising junior, and Sammy, a rising freshman we befriended a few weeks before at our high school's welcoming orientation. While Sammy was the youngest, Tom was the most impulsive of the group. We left later than expected, around 6:30 p.m. We drove for a while, taking in the views and gradually watching the sun dip below the horizon. Driving these roads during the day is relatively safe as long as you don't speed on the curvy sections. During the night, however, it's a completely different world. The road isn't lit at all, and your only source of light besides your high beams are the minimal number of cars driving around you. It feels quite eerie, almost surreal. We were laughing, sharing dark jokes with each other, talking about girls we liked, sharing our disdain for AP classes, etc. It was all typical teen behavior. Everything was fun and games until the orange, "Please refuel," warning sign abruptly appeared right in front of me on the small screen behind the steering wheel. We only had 30 miles left. Sammy checked our location, and realized that by our own carelessness, we had traveled over 250 miles away from home for nearly 3 hours. Tom played it off as inconsequential as a knot began to form in my chest, while Sammy frantically began searching Google Maps for the nearest exit. Just as he was about to make a suggestion, a sign appeared on the right, advertising amenities right off of an exit 39S in a town called New France. The road connecting the town to the interstate ramp was nearly deserted, but that didn't surprise us in the slightest. After all, we had traveled far north, well beyond where traffic thins and silence settles in. We made a right turn and began scanning the roadside for the mobile station we'd seen advertised on the blue sign just before exiting the Northway. After roughly 3 miles, a small, though unmistakably present, gas station appeared on our right. It had just 2 pumps, but since we were the only ones there, it hardly mattered. Beside the pump stood a modest mobile mart, equipped with a single bathroom and a few shelves lined with the usual assortment of unhealthy snacks you'd expect to find at an average off-the-highway rest stop. We were only there to get gas, but Tom, despite having already eaten an absurd amount at dinner, insisted on grabbing a variety of snacks he'd spotted through the window. Without a second thought, he headed inside to use the bathroom and make his purchases. Meanwhile, we finished pumping in no time and were finally ready to hit the road again, bracing ourselves for the inevitable lecture from our parents the following day. We gave it another 10 minutes. When there was still no sign of Tom, I finally decided to go in and drag him out myself. Before I could think of how to reciprocate, the lights illuminating both the store and the gas station all shut off at once, plunging the other boys and I all into complete darkness. My heart began pounding as I called Tom's name, over and over again without any response. There was no exit 39S. There was a 39N. Even a 39E. But no mention, anywhere, of a 39S, or of any town called New France. Suddenly, the air felt colder. The mountains stood too still. And the trees, they seemed to be curving, ever so slightly, toward the road. Before I could react, I saw a figure walking along the road. He was still a fair distance from the car, but close enough to make out some details. I raised my phone and zoomed in with the camera, and that's when the horror set in. The figure was wearing Tom's face. Not just looked like him, wore his face. Before I could react, it began to smile. When I filled the tank earlier, I had 340 miles of range. I was sure of it. Now, I was down to 90. And we'd only been driving for 30 minutes. He paused, his voice shaking, not from fear, but from something deeper. Surrender. Don't come looking for me. And once I'm gone, leave. Immediately. Or it'll change its mind. He looked at each of us, his face flickering like a worn projection trying to hold still. He reached into his coat and handed us a folded map, old, creased, and slightly damp, as if it had passed through many hands before his. He didn't explain it. He didn't need to. Somehow, we understood, this was our way out. We unfolded the map under the dome light of the car. It showed roads none of us had ever heard of, no Waze results, no pins on Google Maps, nothing recognizable to any GPS system. But it was clear. Intentional. Marked with a path we could follow. We saw it. I didn't even think. I slammed my foot on the gas and tore up the ramp, tires spitting gravel behind us as we surged back onto the freeway. Back into the real world. We got home very early in the morning. Our parents scolded for staying out too late, but our car privileges thankfully still remained intact. Nothing unusual. However, what disturbed us most wasn't what happened in the woods. It was what came after. No one questioned Tom's disappearance. No police reports. No missing posters. No calls from worried parents. In fact, nobody seemed to remember Tom at all. Not classmates. Not teachers. Not even his own parents. When we mentioned his name, they just blinked, confused, polite, and distant, like we brought up a stranger. Even the photos on our phones had changed, group shots where his face was once clear now had empty space, or the edge of a jacket with no body attached. Text threads with his name were gone. Playlists he made disappeared. The last we ever heard from him, or whatever took him, came a few weeks after it was all over. Inside was one line, handwritten in uneven ink. Stay out of our territory.
You feel that? That weird pressure in the room? Yeah. That's the algorithm. It knows you're watching, and it gets real cranky when you don't feed it. A simple ritual helps. Click the little thumbs up, tap subscribe, say its name 3 times into your phone mic. Kidding, probably.
Engagement appeases the darkness. You know what to do.
Good, human. Now, back to the horror.
I physically jumped a little from my chair. Yes. Finally. Finally someone who gets me. I felt heard when I was with Gorilla_123. Not only did he listen to my struggles, he made me feel okay about the hosh-posh of emotions inside me. He made me feel, not broken. I am sorry. I am always venting to you. I say, not being completely sincere in my apology. Don't you dare say sorry. What are friends for after all? He replied. I sighed with relief. I could rely on Gorilla_123. After all, he had been hearing me vent non-stop for 3 months now. You see, my life is somewhat of a mess. My single dad treats me like a burden, even though all he does is drink all the time using my money. My job as a waitress is, well, soul-crunching, however you make sense of that. I don't really have a social life, and my only friend seems to be an internet Discord friend that goes by the name of Gorilla_123. Gorilla_123 has always been nice to me. Which is why his next message made me freeze in my chair. You should die, came the message after the notification beep. WDYM? I ask. WDYM means, what do you mean? I mean, think about it. The world has been treating you like garbage. The world doesn't deserve you, he said. I can't see you upset like this. I can't see you being tortured every single day. It hurts me, he replied. I stared at the reply for a few moments, trying to understand what it means. He couldn't be asking me to actually look out of my window or something, could he? Well. I got up and glanced out the window into the dimly lit street. Nothing. I sighed with relief. I was half expecting him to be standing there. Thank God he isn't. If you feel like mocking the sheer stupidity of hiding under the bed, then I would just say you clearly haven't been in a situation like this. My brain was paralyzed and this was the best I could do. My last hope, it seemed. The footsteps ran through the whole house. I hope my dad doesn't wake up. I hope he stays hidden, fallen on the floor behind the sofa after drinking more than he could handle. I know he sucks, but he has his own problems. He wasn't always like that. He was the most caring dad, always cheerful. And then Mom died. And who he was died with her, being replaced by an empty shell that just drinks and shouts. He is just grieving though, isn't he? I hope he stays safe. I slowly slid out the bed, still whimpering, and walked to the screen.
Sleeping yet? Didn't think so. Next story's up. And yeah, it's worse. You're welcome.
I work at a hotel at the end of the world. My job sucks ever since my dead aunt became my new boss, by Yobro 1001. But still. Goodness, I need to talk with janitorial, she said, barely looking at me. You can practically taste the dust. So who was that? One of the delightful benefits of night shift is if there's any major figurative fires, everybody's asleep. I'm, for the most part, in charge of putting them out myself. Or just not. That too. And as I wasn't about to wake up my uncle to tell him my first major contribution as the new night clerk was letting his demonic, dead wife escape into the hotel, I had to wait until morning to talk to somebody. Before I went off to sleep after the night shift, I found my cousin Francis. Hey, so you remember Aunt Cynthia? Kay, so I think she might have walked in last night during my shift. Like alive. Francis was quiet. Then he shrugged. Hey, once I thought I saw Gandhi check in with a demon nun lady. Was it? So that conversation was super helpful. I decided to go directly to the source and sort of ask my uncle. Sort of, because as I said, he's really sensitive about the subject of his wife. He really loved her. Huh. After which point, I bolted from the office in a flurry of subterfuge and discreetness. The next night she came back. Similar to the day before, she insulted the cleanliness of the lobby, but this time she rounded the counter, attempted to sign into the computer, then snarled in frustration when none of her passwords worked. After a minute of this, she strolled away again. Some nights she would come. Some nights she wouldn't. I stopped mentioning it to my cousins and never brought it up again to my uncle. Each time she came, she declared she was going to speak with him, but as far as I could tell, she never did. It carried on like that for about a week. Odd. But nothing too terrible. So sorry about the time, the older lady apologized. She was dripping with water. Outside was pouring. No worries. You two must be the Pantelis? I asked. How dare you? Cynthia shrieked. Both the Pantelis and I gaped. I'd never actually seen my aunt interact with any other guests. She'd always come in and left so quickly there'd never been a collision. Look at all that water you're dripping, my aunt ranted. You're making a mess of my establishment. Filthy, dirty. No, I said. Not your fault. The weather's terrible. Just go check into your room and we'll take care of the mess. Cynthia snarled. We will absolutely not. This is my hotel. No. It's not. Finally. Once a bellhop, always a bellhop. No answer. You forgot your bag, I called. Nothing. I'll just leave it at the door. I checked under the beds and in the closet. Nowhere. Finally, I crept to the balcony, fingers trembling, and pulled back the curtain. Aunt Cynthia held the younger Panteley woman by her neck, turned backwards. The woman struggled, hands waving in the air and feet kicking for purchase at the balcony ledge. My aunt didn't seem fazed. She was busy with something else. Her face was upturned. With her free hand, she shoved handfuls of the human woman's hair into her mouth, swallowing and choking it down. Tearing it off. Biting bloody clumps from the woman's scalp and gulping them down like a fleshy newborn bird. In between bites, she was muttering, ruining my hotel. And, disgusting, ill-mannered guests. The older Panteley woman was gone entirely, but I could see shreds of her clothing littered around the balcony. My aunt's eyes shot to me. She ripped one more vicious clump from the woman's scalp, then before I could react, before I could move, she thrust the woman off the balcony, and into the eternal void. Hands reached from the darkness. The woman shrieked, sobbing, but the hands jerked her back, and she disappeared, her scream cut off mid-shriek. My uncle picked up on the first ring. She's here, I said. Your wife. Where? He said, and I led him upstairs to the balcony. What was she? Meeting, he told me when he emerged, and I helped gather the rest of my cousins and the few local employees. When all of us, those who weren't currently on active shift, gathered in the break room, my uncle gestured to Cynthia. They'd come to an understanding, he explained. They would be our joint managers for now. Whatever Cynthia said went. If she instructed us to do something, we should treat it as if it had been an instruction from him. My aunt smiled at all of us, but at the very end of the speech, she looked at me specifically, adjusted her badge, and winked. I don't know what to do. I don't know what they talked about, or why he's letting her stay after what she did to two of our guests. For now, all I know is that when it rains, I plan to lay out towels at the doors.
Whew, telling gave me chills. But hey, we're just getting started. The next one's sharper. You'll see.
My student submitted the most disturbing living history project I've ever seen, by Gretel Cat. I have been doing this for 17 years, and when I collected the projects this time around, I assumed they would be as dull, if not duller than usual. This had not been a particularly bright class. So I went home, poured myself a glass of wine, and prepared for a long night of, I only owned 2 pairs of pants when I was your age, and my brother got beat with a newspaper for hitting a baseball into a neighbor's yard. And of course, these projects were peppered with innocent, old person comments that were so horribly sexist and racist you just had to laugh. Now, I had a girl in my class whom I will call Olivia. She was pudgy, quiet, and proved herself a consistent B student. I expected her project to be as unremarkable as her, and perhaps that's why I was so profoundly disturbed by what I witnessed that night. Olivia had submitted 2 discs for some reason, so I began with the one marked interview. My screen hiccuped twice before a grainy image of a living room came into view. The place was a hoarder's hell. Olivia was curled up in an armchair clutching a notebook and looking like a scared animal. Across from her sat a man with a somber countenance, smoking a cigarette and staring at her expectantly. "Go ahead," a woman's voice whispered from behind the camera. Olivia's owlish eyes flashed towards the screen, then back to the man. "I am here with my great-uncle Stephen," she began almost inaudibly. "He is going to tell us about his oldest memories from being in the army." Great-uncle Stephen looked like he'd rather be in a goddamn trench at the moment, but he waited patiently for the questions to begin. Not surprisingly, Olivia read verbatim from the suggested questions sheet I had handed out to the students. He answered her curtly. Once or twice I heard her mother whisper, "Speak up, Olivia," from behind the camera. Typical, boring shit. "Yes." "Ahem." Mom coughed. "Mom," Olivia chimed. "Please stop interrupting." "I'm sure he's heard the word shit before," Great-uncle Stephen contributed helpfully. I wasn't he, as a matter of fact, but other than that the statement was accurate. The camera was lifted and after a couple of blurry focus adjustments, the shot was the same as before. It was not these attacks and disorganized violence that took the lives of my wife and child. It was illness. Mercifully, it happened quickly for the baby. Nadia suffered for longer. I watched in horror knowing I could do nothing for them. My only solace is that I was there for them every step of the way. I stopped going to work one day, and no one came after me. I doubt they noticed I was gone. Since the school was simply across a field, visible from my window, it would have been easy to go for a few hours each day and come home quickly to care for them. But what was the point? All I did was clean floors. I was as useless to the world as I was to my family. Once I had some water and food, it occurred to me that the only thing left to do was go back to work. So I did. The following morning, I simply returned to the school where I was a janitor and got back to work. Nobody made a big deal out of it. Like I said, Nadia had been sick for a long time, and those who worked at the school knew it. I appreciate that no one had pestered me to come back to work during the hardest days of my life. The teachers never said much to me, but we smiled at each other in the halls and that mutual respect was perhaps the reason I decided to come back at all. The place had gone to the dogs without me, so I simply grabbed my broom and rags from my closet and set to cleaning. Everyone is grateful to have me back, I know. And the best part is that nobody minds my radio. I bring it with me everywhere and keep the volume low enough not to disrupt the students. No one has ever complained. In fact, I suspect they like it. The schoolhouse is not very big, but does require a lot of maintenance. The floors are always sticky and stained, so I spend most of my time mopping. Kids make messes, I guess that's why I'm still in business. Sometimes I have to move things around to make sure I get every spot on the floor beautiful and clean, but I take pride in that. When I am besieged with memories of my wife and baby, I turn up the volume on the radio to drown out such thoughts. It works for me every time. Because this morning, I woke up to dead silence. I frantically examined the radio to see what had happened. I honestly cannot tell you how many days in a row I have been using it. Did it simply live out its life and die naturally? I have spent the entire day trying to fix it. Most of this time, I have been crying. I am losing my mind without it. I have given myself until sundown. If I cannot fix it by then, I am going to take my life. I am writing this because the sunlight is starting to die and I know what my fate shall be. There are no more tears in me. It feels now like I can't catch my breath. I vomited what little food I had in my stomach and I am growing dizzy again, like I did after Nadia died. I am not long for this world. But before I take my life, I have closed the door to this room and stuck a chair beneath the handle. It is the only room in the basement and has a small casement that lets in just enough light for me to see what I am doing. If anyone is kind enough to come looking for me, they should not be met with this gruesome sight. Perhaps they will see the door is blocked, smell my rotting body, and simply forget I ever existed. But I have placed both my radio and this note outside the door. Kind sir, if you are reading this, I have one humble request, please fix it. Save my radio. It did not deserve to die in its sleep, and I am ashamed that I cannot revive it. Now I am ready to join Nadia and little Ludmila in heaven. I hope this school can find another janitor who loves and cares for it the way I do. The hour is now. Do not forget my radio. Stanislav. When Mom zoomed back out, Olivia had tears in her eyes. Thank you for sharing, Uncle Stephen, Mom said, her voice choked. I think we have enough. Wait. Olivia chirped. He said there's more. What did you find? Before Great Uncle Stephen could open his mouth, the image disappeared. My jaw dropped. Was that it? What did Great Uncle Stephen see? Hi Miss Garrity. I'm sorry about my mom, but she refused to record the rest of what my uncle was saying. But I asked him to continue and secretly recorded the story as a voice memo on my phone. I remember you said earlier this year that history is written by the people who win wars. She sucked in a breath and commenced crying. But everyone's history is important, even if they are sad, pathetic people, and even if they never won a single thing in their life. I haven't slept through the night since I finished this project, but you have to hear what my uncle has to say. So did you find the radio? Or did it get ruined when the school got blown up? It was dated 2 weeks before we started rebuilding the school. Didn't you say the school had been destroyed like 2 years ago? Did you see the dead body? Yes. Hanging from the ceiling, but still amazingly lifelike. He wasn't rotting away. This hadn't happened years ago. Did he look peaceful? She asked, a chord of desperation in her voice. Couldn't tell you. The smell was rank, and his face was blue and his eyes were bulging. Like this. I imagined him demonstrating. And the radio? Olivia wept. I heard Great Uncle Stephen take a long drag of his cigarette. It was there, all right. And it was still on.
You're still tuned to HorrorSlop. Frequency unknown. Stories endless. Let's spin the next nightmare.
Change, by Whistling. Some important details. He's bald. He shaved his head last year when he decided it would look better than having thinning hair. This has never caused any issues with my attraction to him, and he knows that. He works a job that sometimes has him leaving town for short stretches of time. Normally, he's gone for just a few nights and will tell me if plans change and he's staying later or coming home earlier than expected. At the end of last week, Tim left for one of his work trips and said he would be gone until Tuesday morning. I dropped him off at the airport on Friday evening and began my weekend alone with our 2 cats. Tim said nothing, aggressively threw his duffel bag down at my feet, and shuffled down the hall to our bedroom. I followed him and asked him how his trip went. He grunted in response and slammed the bedroom door. He hadn't asked me to call him. And as I've stated, normally he's the one who calls me throughout these trips. I mean, I'm sorry, but, I started to reply. Tim pushed past me, stomped over to the living room couch, threw his beanie across the room, and sat down, crossing his arms over his chest. It wasn't just that Tim was being harsh toward me for seemingly no reason. The entire aura around him felt off. This was Tim, but it was all wrong. I returned home late that night to an extraordinarily cold house. Every room felt like a walk-in freezer. The light was on in our bedroom, but Tim was still shut inside. I decided to sleep on the couch, though Tim's presence still creeped me out even from behind that closed door. But when I woke up the next morning, the light was off in our bedroom and Tim was gone. Normally he would take a day off of work after traveling, so I hadn't expected him to be at work that morning. The temperature in the house felt normal again. I reached for my phone and saw a text from Tim. "Just landed," it said. It was sent an hour ago.
That last one tasted like fear and poor decisions. Let's see what the next bite serves. Hope you're hungry.
I spent that evening arranging charcuterie on paper plates and pouring red wine into Walmart paper cups. That's how you know you're really living your best life. No real utensils, but somehow the fancy salami and cheese still made the budget. Honestly, the place is a bit small and unfurnished. I have a decent job, but as it turns out, lawyers aren't cheap. Still, I'm now the proud owner of a 700 square foot, 1-bedroom, 1-bath apartment on the 9th floor of a building that's definitely seen better days. I can't complain, though. It's just me and my thoughts. Or it was. All of that to say, this place is empty. There's no comfort here, not yet, anyway. It doesn't feel like mine. I've been here about 2 weeks, and I haven't found the motivation to decorate. Or really to do anything at all. After getting myself ready and laying out a few blankets on the floor, the only seating option, unless everyone wanted to pile onto my sad little air mattress, I took a deep breath and waited for people to arrive. I love my friends. Truly. Most of them are in stable, loving relationships. Many have children. Some run small Etsy businesses that actually thrive. They are determined. They're indestructible monuments to motivation and determined women. I sound jealous, because I am. I do not have enough pride to pretend that I'm not. The party was great. We laughed too loudly, drank too much cheap wine, and for a few hours, it almost felt like nothing in my life had ever fallen apart. It's important to surround yourself with other women. The only people who can truly know you. Even if they didn't fully understand what I'd been through, their presence filled the empty corners of this place with something close to warmth. That's when it all went wrong. The rattling door interrupted my sulking. I figured one of the girls had left something behind. A wallet? Car keys? I scanned the room but didn't see anything obvious. This is the problem with being too wine drunk, everything blurs. I didn't think twice. I hobbled to the door and cracked it open. Jesus! What the hell, I gasped, clutching my cheek. But they didn't acknowledge me. They just filed into the middle of the room and sat cross-legged in a circle on the floor. Surely this couldn't be happening. I must have passed out. I must be dreaming. That makes sense. Yes. That has to be it. I burst out laughing. I didn't know what else to do. Then the laughter cracked. "Get out," I whispered through my ragged breaths. "Please." Eventually, I gathered enough courage to move. I stepped over the threshold into the room. No one reacted. Not when I walked past them, not when I cried, not even when I collapsed onto the bathroom floor and threw up. When I came back out, they were still sitting there. Still smiling. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I curled up on my air mattress and pulled the blanket over my head like a child. Like that would do anything. I realize I should have called the police. I should have slept somewhere else. I should have done anything but stay there. But I was scared. All I have ever known is staying somewhere that didn't want me. Now, even my own space didn't want me there anymore. By morning, they were gone. Physically, anyway. My friends have been texting, worried. I send back short replies. Usually something vague about adjusting to the new place. They want to visit again, but I can't let them. I'm too afraid. Their faces are ruined now. Corrupted by what I saw that night. It took me time to accept that I'm sharing this space with something else. Ghosts or whatever, I'm not sure what they are. I just know they're not leaving. Living with them feels eerily similar to living with someone who never really saw you. The hollowness is the same. So is the cold.
Something's still listening, and it wants more. Next story. Just don't say its name.
My son's camera monitor alerted in the middle of the night. I checked it and saw my wife and son sitting on the bed. They weren't my wife and son, by Rising Mac. I'm a nurse and I currently work nights. It's a total drag, but I'm hopeful I can go to days soon since some coworkers are planning retirements. Anyway, I was working one night when just after 3 a.m. my son's monitor alerted me to sound and movement. No big deal at all, he probably coughed loudly or sneezed or something. He's 3 now, so he generally sleeps all night. I bring it up on my phone and I see him and my wife sitting on the bed. Again, no big deal. He might have cried out or gotten scared or something. I was about to close the app when I noticed they were acting strange, almost creepy. And when I say, almost, creepy, I mean creepy as balls. They were sitting on the bed together, both of them just staring up at the camera with blank, emotionless stares. The night vision is black and white, so they had white, eerie-looking eyes. They didn't move at all aside from their visible breathing, they just sat there staring at the camera. I close the app and give my wife a call to make sure everything is okay. I never get to call home on lunch, so in a way this is kind of nice to get to talk to my family while at work. It rings a couple times before she answers with a very groggy, hello. It was like she was dead asleep when I called and she looked wide awake when on the camera. Hey. You guys okay? Huh. Yeah. Buddy, my son's nickname, came in like 15 minutes ago. Seemed scared, so I said he could sleep with mama. Hang on a sec. I put her on speaker and bring up the app, hoping I don't see it. When the app loads, I get that pang of intense nervousness in my stomach that I haven't had in a long time, since I was a kid in school and realized while I was eating breakfast a paper or something was due that day and I hadn't done it. My heart leaps into my throat. My wife and son are sitting on his bed looking up at the camera, same emotionless stares. You guys are in bed, right? Yeah, we're trying to sleep. Of course, now I'm absolutely terrified myself, so I immediately call back. It goes to voicemail, so I call again. I call again and again with no answer. Finally, after about 4 minutes, she calls me. I tell you that 4 minutes felt like 40 years. Stop. Slow down for just a second, I say. We have code words because we're nerds. We've seen too many pod people and imposter movies, so we decided a long time ago to make code words with each other to be able to tell if one of us was an imposter. We have a couple code words, but we also have a 3-sentence story we recite together, each saying a different part alternately of each other. I hear her on the phone saying the things we taught our son. He giggles as he says them. He does every time we practice, since he thinks they're a joke and doesn't have any idea of the real meaning. We're both convinced he's our son. My wife then says our part and I'm convinced she's her. We made up these words as a complete joke to ourselves. I never once in my life ever imagined we'd actually need them. Unreal. There was no pattern to their blinking, it was erratic and random, just as a person blinking should be. The passing hours are what finally sealed the deal that this was not a weird looped video of some kind. My son's window is visible on camera and I can see on camera that it is getting lighter outside his room. His curtains keep out just enough light to prevent the camera from exiting night vision, but lets in just enough to be able to tell the sun is rising. I try to figure out what the hell I'm going to do before I leave work. Calling the police comes to mind, but I talk myself out of it. First of all, what am I supposed to say? Someone is in my house that looks like my wife but isn't. Worse yet, what if they are entities of some kind and the police do go over and it kills them or something? I decide to tell coworker about it. He's a firm believer in the paranormal and might have a suggestion. I show him the video and tell him the story. His initial response of, "That's creepy as fuck," doesn't help much, but he says he wants to go over and check it out. He says we both should to see if not my wife will try and act like my wife. I tell him absolutely not, and he says we should at least go to the house even if we don't go in. I agree on that since I wanted to close the garage. We got to my house and walked around the perimeter first. Not sure what we wanted to accomplish by that, but it felt like something we should do. The curtains were all drawn since nobody was there to open them in the morning, so we couldn't see anything. I went to close the garage and suddenly had this overwhelming urge to go inside and investigate. It was like I just had to know what was going on. So in we went. We hear a loud creak in the floor from upstairs. It's my son's room. He has a very loud, creaky board right in the middle of his floor that's almost impossible not to step on. My wife and are still deciding if we ever want to fix it because it will alert us if he's ever up to no good when he gets older trying to sneak out or something. Come on, come on, come on. I yell as I motion for him to move his ass. We're out of the house in about 2 seconds. Out on the street I check my phone. Now only not my son was sitting on the bed, same blank stare. Not my wife was gone. Holy shit, my coworker says. That was stupid as fuck of us. Do not tell my wife we went inside. She would be so ungodly mad if she found out what we just did. .. That was all about 4 days ago now. Not my wife and not my son are still sitting on the bed staring up at the camera. They haven't moved a millimeter. We obviously haven't gone back to our house. What do we do? ..
And now, as the hour gets cold, and the shadows stretch long into the corners of your room, it's time.
Yeah. Chew the spooky violin. But seriously, this next one? Even I didn't sleep after hearing it.
I've claimed something coming from you.
What? Just because I sleep in a coffin and collect cursed dolls?
Among other things. This is the final descent for the night. One last story, dragged up from the depths of the disturbed and deranged.
Go ahead. Turn off the lights. We dare you.
This is HorrorSlop.
I'm no small fry, but I admit I had trouble lifting the box on my own. It was really freaking heavy. Lugging it across the road to my house was even harder, and I quickly realized there was no way I was going to drag it up the stairs and through my front door. I decided I'd leave his package in my garage. It wasn't like I kept my car in there. The garage door was a piece of shit that refused to open without a good thug and a whack. It was less trouble just leaving the car in the driveway than it was to fight with the garage door every morning and night. In hindsight, I should have set the package down while I struggled to open the tricky door, but you know how it is when you've got a good grip on something, no point in setting it down if you don't have to. It was as I kicked the door for a third time that I lost my grip on the package, and it fell to the ground. I heard a light crack inside. I hoped I hadn't broken anything important, but figured I just wouldn't tell my neighbor about it and let him assume the break happened en route. Hands free, I finally managed to get the garage door unstuck, and boy did it screech in protest as it rolled up and over me. I dragged the box the rest of the way, setting it in the corner for whenever my neighbor would come back to claim it. And then, I forgot all about it. Until a few days passed, that is. I'm not sure exactly how long it took for the smell to waft in from the crack under the garage-to-house door, but it came in slow progression. It was a sickly sweet odor similar to a skunk, and for the first few days after I smelled it, I genuinely assumed that's exactly what it was, roadkill that had left its mark on my house. It was only when I realized the scent was growing more intense instead of fading that I went looking for a source. That's when I opened the garage door, and that's when the odor knocked me back, holding my nose. The culprit wasn't hard to identify. The only change in my garage was the box in the corner. I remember thinking it must have been one of those meat of the month subscription boxes. The meat must have gone rancid from being left out of the fridge for so long. How much meat could have been in there for the box to have been so large and heavy? An entire freaking cow. My scissors tore through the tape along the top of the cardboard box. I thought the smell couldn't get any worse, but as I flipped the flaps open, I discovered a whole new gamut of stink. It was like opening a burning oven, but instead of a heat wave, I was met with waves of piss, sweat, shit, and putrefaction. It was so bad that I staggered back and had to force down the puke begging to guzzle out of me. I don't think I could have handled that scent mingling with the horrors coming out of the box. I'm not ashamed to admit I ran out the door for a breath of fresh air, but in the short time I'd spent in the garage, the smell had become so ingrained in the fabric of my clothes that it clung to me like a shadow. Nothing I tried could keep the smell out of my nostrils. Not air fresheners, not a face mask, not 3 showers and a change of clothes. Every second that box lay open in my garage was another second the smell was allowed a foothold into my home. I had to bite the bullet. I wouldn't have to touch or clean the contents of that box, I would only have to suffer the nightmares every night. You see, there was meat in that box, but it didn't come from a cow or a pig. No, it was worse than that. It was my neighbor. Dead. Still in one piece, but dead. I called the cops, and naturally, they took me in for interrogation. It's kind of hard not to suspect the man with a corpse in his garage, after all. Thankfully, they soon realized I wasn't involved. My DNA might have been all over that box, the smell might have left a mark throughout my house, but there was one piece of irrefutable evidence in my neighbor's own hands that proved my innocence, a vlogging camera. They showed me the footage only once. I'm not sure if they were allowed to, or if they felt so bad for me they figured it couldn't hurt. Either way, I saw it.
And there you have it, dear listeners. One final scream, echoing into the void.
Yeah. Void screams, eternal darkness, I get it. Can I eat now?
We're still on air, Roxy.
Oh no, just the spooky FCC is gonna haunt us for breaking the mood.
If you enjoyed tonight's descent into depravity, don't forget to like, subscribe, and what does he always say?
Stab that bell icon like it's your ex possessed by a demon, and leave a comment telling us what story made you question. I have choices.
And if you survive the night, we'll be waiting.
Same dat time, same dat crypt.
You're the reason we have complaints, you know that.
You're welcome.